What you're saying about putting aside the tribal interest for the corporate interest, that's absolutely the case. The main challenge to that, a big challenge to that, is organized Jewry in America.
Fierce backlash within the GOP against Tucker Carlson for his interview with controversial white nationalist and Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes. Now this controversy is rocking one of America's most influential conservative groups, the Heritage Foundation, which helped create Project 2025. Kevin Roberts is the president of Heritage, and he is in damage control. I mean, initially he defended Carlson's interview.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the Midas Touch Network. The Republican Party is imploding, and I'm not even talking about the results of last week's elections. When a movement abandons its founding ideals the way the GOP has, when its only motivating principle becomes the pursuit of power, eventually it becomes untethered. The Heritage Foundation has long served as the ideological torchbearer for conservatism. But when ideas no longer matter, when principles are subservient to power, then what happened last week becomes almost inevitable. Kevin Roberts, the leader of the Heritage Foundation, chose power over principle. He defended Tucker Carlson, who remains an enormously influential figure on the extreme right, over standing up to hate and anti-Semitism. Who better to interrogate this for us than Kris Goldsmith, our resident Nazi hunter, a fellow vet, and host of a brand new podcast coming out next week called On Offense. Here's our conversation. Welcome to the Ken Harbaugh Show. We've got Kris Goldsmith back, the founder and president of Veterans Fighting Fascism. Business is good, as they say, Kris, which is not a good thing for the country, but I would love your thoughts on this outrageous conversation between Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes, and more importantly, the army of conservatives and Republican leaders who have come to the defense of this spectacle, including the Heritage Foundation.
Yeah, so the Heritage Foundation right now is being kind of embroiled with controversy from within because the president of Heritage came forward and said, it is not a problem that someone that we promote and who we do ads on his show, Tucker Carlson, is interviewing self-described like anti-Semites, people who are very specifically racist, and that is Nick Fuentes, right? Nick Fuentes became famous or infamous because he participated in the Unite the Right neo-Nazi rally. And then when he went back to school in Boston, he decided to drop out because he said he was afraid now that everyone knew that he was a Nazi. So this guy's entire career is was built around being a Nazi. And Tucker Carlson is not the first mainstream Republican who's cozied up to him. It wasn't very long ago that Donald Trump invited this Nazi to Mar-a-Lago to dine with him. And Donald Trump has, throughout the beginning of his candidacy, been minimizing the harm that swastika-flying neo-Nazis and self-described white nationalists do, not just to marginalized communities, but to our democracy, to the idea that one person should have one vote, and that all men and women are created equal. Again, we need to not allow these things to become normalized. We've gotten so used to people saying the term white nationalists that people forget that to be a white nationalist is to be pro-genocide. You can only have a white nation if you are physically removing or murdering people of color and people of different ethnicities and religions. That is what a white nationalist is. So,
which is what Nick Fuentes explicitly espouses. He's not dancing around that. You know, he has said, for example, that all he wants is revenge against my enemies and a total Aryan victory. He refers to the Holocaust victims as cookies. In a way, it's performative anti-Semitism because he is seeking to entertain. That's first and foremost what he is, but he is deadly serious in his hatred of Jews.
Yeah. And again, this gets back to kind of, my obsession with accountability. We have to collectively, as a society, impose legal costs on people who are espousing these things. Now, Nick Fuentes has a First Amendment right to do whatever he wants. And many companies have deplatformed him, meaning like he got kicked off of Twitter before Elon Musk bought it and then brought all the neo-Nazis back personally and intervening and making sure that Nick Fuentes got on. He's been banned from YouTube. But Tucker Carlson has one of the most popular podcasts in the United States. He's regularly in the top 100, if not the top 30 on Apple Podcasts' top shows chart. Why is Apple allowing a man who platforms and normalizes Nazis to use their system? Why is Spotify allowing Tucker Carlson to do this? If Nick Fuentes is bad enough that he needs to get banned from YouTube, why is he welcomed to be a guest on YouTube shows? That makes no logical sense. It only continues to normalize his presence in our society, and we need to do everything that is within our legal power to ensure that everyone with any stake in the game at all, any advertiser, any app that facilitates Nick Fuentes' message getting out and him getting money, we need to make sure that those levers are being pulled.
Hey everyone, it's Ken. Quick break here to say thanks for watching and a huge shout out to everyone who supported my most recent reporting trip to Ukraine. I hope you followed the updates on Substack. I reported from Chernobyl, from Kyiv and Odessa, and from frontline positions alongside some of the bravest people I have ever met. If you haven't yet signed up for my Substack, please check it out. It's free to join. The link's below. Thanks. As someone who understands propaganda as well as anyone we've had on this show, can you explain to the uninitiated why platforming itself is a problem? And look, it's not as if Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on and grilled him and embarrassed him. It was the worst kind of solicitousness of these anti-Semitic views. But say hypothetically that you're faced with a decision as a podcaster or as a member of the media about whether or not to have a guest on who has views like Nick Fuentes's. Can you explain why platforming by itself is a harm?
So there's a concept called the liar's dividend. If you give a liar space to speak, to write something, to create content that is going to be consumed by your audience, they're winning. Period. Full stop. If you allow a liar to speak as the mainstream media, the entire media ecosystem did for Trump when he was an obscure candidate who couldn't possibly win the nomination, right? That there was a time. He got lots of clicks. He got lots of eyeballs to watch commercials. That is what Donald Trump's value was to the entire media ecosystem when he was first created. Some people have learned that you shouldn't just play Donald Trump's live musings because the cleanup that you have to do after is expensive on you. The fact checking is not just expensive in terms of like you have to hire fact checkers. It's expensive in terms of you're boring your audience. The liar is the entertaining thing. You fact checking is never going to get as many eyeballs. So when we have systems that keep rewarding liars, keep giving them bigger and bigger platforms, the rest of society has to pay a cost. These are negative externalities that fall on all of us. And it doesn't matter if you don't watch YouTube. It doesn't matter if you don't listen to podcasts. Once that information, that polluting information, the hate, whether it be against Jews or people of color or Black people or Native Americans, all of these people as part of our society are bearing the cost of increased hatred and violence every time someone like Nick Fuentes is given an opportunity to speak.
That was part one of my conversation with Kris Goldsmith. In part two, out next week, Kris explains why so many young men in particular are drawn to the kind of performative hate espoused by Nick Fuentes. See you then.